some science now. Science is good. I'll try not to put you to sleep, because to me it's exciting. Maybe not for everybody, but this is something so important that we're excited to talk about now, which is quality. Essential oil quality. Now, that's kind of been a theme so far throughout the meeting, and this is really now where we're going to talk about what that means. The science of quality. Now, there's a lot of essential oils out there, right? You've seen them, all kinds of bottles everywhere in every store. What makes doTERRA essential oils different? One of those things is quality. We're going to talk about what that means. Some of the tests, some of the many tests that we do on the essential oils every time, so that when you see a bottle with a doTERRA label on it, you know that what's inside is the highest quality oil you can get. Now, CPTG, the Certified Pure Therapeutic Grade, is a standard that doTERRA has set that really is revolutionizing the industry. Before doTERRA came along, pretty much anybody could put anything they wanted into an essential oil bottle, call it an essential oil, and nobody really knew any different. We heard Rob in his talk yesterday show some results from APRC, and we're going to hear more from Aaron Sorensen a little bit later, who's going to talk about how in the industry there's so much deception sometimes when it comes to essential oil quality. And so that's why it's important for us to have this education, so you understand what it means to really have a quality essential oil and how we're able to test that. So part of the CPTG, in fact one of the most important parts, are to have scientific experts that really understand what they're looking at when you look at an essential oil. What does a high quality oil look like? What do those tests mean? So we have on our staff at doTERRA corporate office and around the world, scientists who are highly trained to look at essential oils and to understand a good oil from a bad oil. That's very important. And then we partner with universities, hospitals, scientists, researchers around the world who also help us further our understanding in new oils that we're looking at, in other tests, new methods. This really is a growing process. Every year we're adding new information and new tests, ways that we can look at the essential oils and truly understand the very best ways to test them. So on our team, these are just some of the people. You can imagine there are hundreds of them across the world that are working to make sure doTERRA essential oils are the highest quality. Sourcing experts, botanists, our growers and distillers in the field are experts at what they do as well. Chemists, engineers, microbiologists. We have people from just about every scientific discipline looking at the oils from plant growing to oil in the bottle, so that we understand at every step of the way what's happening with our essential oils and how we can continue to make it better. Now, it's not just one piece that makes up CPTG. I made this little picture to give you an idea of all the things that go into our CPTG process. And really, it starts with our on-the-ground sourcing partners. This is different in the industry. Until doTERRA came along, most people were getting their oils from third-party people. They didn't know what was in it. Even the people who they were selling it from didn't know what was in it. By going right to the source, by talking to the farmers, the growers, the distillers, the people who are handling our oils right from the very beginning, we can truly understand what's going into them, how they're being grown, how they're being handled, and many times we've been able to improve the quality of our oil right there at the beginning. And that's huge. Next, we have our own doTERRA quality control. This is a growing laboratory that we have at our corporate office. Scientists keep coming to doTERRA because they see that we really have something important going on. So we're attracting the very best talent in the field. We have APRC, which is our third-party validation lab. You'll get to hear a lot more about today, and I'm excited for you to learn about that. But we like to have several kinds of validation on the essential oil because scientists do like to check and recheck and double check everything. So we like both of those kind of quality checks. And then we also do have a number of labs that do third-party specialized testing for us. We'll talk about a couple of those tests in just a minute. And all of that goes into making a beautiful doTERRA CPTG essential oil. So every time you open up that lid, just know that there is a lot of expertise, there's a lot of love and a lot of care that goes into making sure that oil is its very best. Okay, so our testing process looks something like this. This is a simplified version. I'll just say that right up front. Rod mentioned that we have 43, I think, tests that we can run on our products. That's a lot. That's more than anybody else that I know of. So these are just a few of them because I didn't have room on the slide to list all of them. We're going to talk in some detail about what these mean for two reasons. First, to give you confidence in the oil that you're using, that it really is high quality. And second, because I would love for you to go out and explain this to somebody else. When I was a professor in university, I would always tell my students, if you can explain this to somebody else, especially to a child, you can explain it in a way that makes sense, that you understand it. So that's my goal, to help you understand something so you can go explain it to somebody else. And as you share the oils, you can say, yes, I have confidence in doTERRA because look at what they do. And that's something nobody else does. Okay, so CPTG, really at its heart, is a tool for analysis of our essential oils. But we're going to go through some of the tests that are part of that analysis process. And really, it kind of begins by how does the oil smell? It seems very simple, but that's a very important test that we have to run every single time. Did you know that our noses are one of our most finely tuned senses that we have? Scientists used to think that we were actually weak smelling people, mammals, other mammals like dogs, even rats, could smell way better than people can. And so they thought, we can only smell maybe a few thousand smells. But it turns out, that's not true at all. We can actually distinguish about 1 trillion different smells with this nose. It is a very important tool and always will be. So, we analyze the various qualities of the essential oil, how it smells, how it feels, how it looks, the color, the thickness, the viscosity, how does it feel on the skin. All of these are part of organoleptic testing. Now, sometimes we get the question in relation to organoleptic testing, should my oil always smell exactly the same? It's a good question, right? Because we are striving for consistency in our essential oils. Does consistency mean that every single time it's going to smell exactly the same? I would argue that it is actually okay to have some variation, and in fact important to have a little bit of variation, because remember, these are natural products. These are plants that are growing from season to season, and sometimes the season might be different. One season might be a little bit drier than the last, or wetter, or you might have a certain, kind of environmental stress that will change the way the oil ends up. Now, just because it may smell a little bit different, that doesn't mean that we're going to subject it to any less testing. We need to make sure that the oil is still going to perform the way that it needs to. The chemistry has to be correct. Interestingly enough, the aroma of an essential oil can change on just thousandths of a part. So that's why sometimes the chemistry is perfectly correct, and there's maybe just a little bit of variation. So keep that in mind as you're smelling your oil. It should smell always like a doTERRA oil, and it should always be amazing. But there may be a little bit of difference. Okay, one of our main tests, you've probably heard of this one, gas chromatography mass spectrometry, or GCMS. We do this 24 hours a day, all through our corporate campus, running hundreds and hundreds of samples through. We have, I think, 5 or 6 of these machines, and they are just running samples through all day long. Now, this is a really important test, and it looks kind of complicated, but basically what happens is we put the essential oil into the machine, and what it does is it groups together the molecules based on their size. That's all. It's actually not too hard when you think about it that way. So when you see the GCMS report that looks like this, each of those little spikes, those are molecules that are the same size. And the sooner they come out, so if you look up there on the chart, I'll show you up here. Over here on your left, those are molecules that came out sooner. They're smaller, they're lighter. So they raced through the machine and they came out the other side. The molecules over there on your right, those are the ones that are bigger, they're heavier, they're slower. So they kind of plodded their way through and they came out last. But that's how you're looking at a GCMS report. Right? You're looking at those little spikes, and each of those spikes represents a molecule of a particular size. Now, that's important to do. Once we separate them based on their size, we still have to understand what molecules they are. Because, I mean, I can be looking at a whole bunch of different spikes on a chart and still not have any idea what the molecules are. That's where the MS, or the mass spectrometry part, comes in. Okay, so now imagine that you have an egg, and you're going to throw that egg against the wall, and what happens? It's going to break into pieces, right? Now imagine that you're a scientist who gets to go and take all those pieces and put them back together into an egg. Honestly, that's kind of what the mass spectrometry does. We're breaking apart the molecules, and then the mass spectrometry takes a look at those pieces and gives us a picture of what that molecule was. Sounds a little counterintuitive, but honestly, that's the best way that we've found to be able to understand what those molecules look like. We break them up and we look at their pieces. So once we have an idea of the chemistry from our GCMS, we have to subject the oils to a whole bunch of what we call physical testing. We have to make sure that they are the right consistency, they have the right density, they have all kinds of the right qualities to them, and these are tests that are very fast. So we can run them through and get a really good idea very quickly of the quality of the oil. So specific gravity. Specific gravity is we're comparing the density of the oil to water. Now this is a fun experiment you can actually do at home. If you have kids, or if you don't have kids, it's just a fun experiment to do. You just take a glass of water and you drip your oil into the water. If it floats up on top, like the picture there on your left, that means it's less dense than water. And it has a specific gravity of 0.99 or less. If it's kind of bubbling down into the water, almost looking like it's going to sink, but not quite sinking, it's got a specific gravity about like water, so around 1. And on your left, if it just sinks to the bottom like a rock, its specific gravity is more than water, so somewhere above 1. If you've never tried this, do. It's fun. In fact, there's a YouTube video that doTERRA did that shows you some oils you can do this test with. And it's quite a hoot. Now, this is an important test because it gives us an idea about whether the oil has been cut with something, maybe some fatty carrier oil. It would change the specific gravity. And that would give us an idea, oh, something might be wrong. So we would continue into the next tests and see if there's something wrong with the oil. We would look at its refractive index. Now, a couple of tests that we talk about involve using light. Light is a wonderful tool for us because essential oils and light have an interesting relationship. Refractive index. This is how light moves through something. Right now, you're looking at light moving through the air. There's not much resistance there. If you were to look at light moving through a glass of water, for example, you're going to see that there's a shift. See how that straw looks kind of like it's cut in half? The refractive index changes because the water is a different medium than the air. Essential oils are a different medium than water or air. And so each essential oil has its own refractive index that tells us how light would travel through it. And once we know that, we will check every essential oil that comes through and make sure it's got that correct refractive index. If that changes, what do we suspect? We suspect it's been adulterated. Somebody's cut it with something. Somebody's changed it somehow. Okay, so this is an indication of how pure the oil is. Optical rotation, another test using light. We just love light. Okay, this is limonene. Limonene actually has two different forms. There's kind of a left-handed form and a right-handed form. Now, I want you to try something with me. Can you hold your hand straight out in front of you? You have one left hand and one right hand. See how they kind of look alike? Now, turn them and make them mirror images of each other. Now try and superimpose them. This is exactly what optical rotation measures. We have two molecules that are mirror images of each other, which means they have a structure that looks just like a hand, but if I were to try and superimpose them, I couldn't. They're not the same structure in that way. So plus limonene and minus limonene, or D-limonene and L-limonene, there's two different kinds. And did you know that people who are really smart can actually change the natural ratio of limonene by spiking in one kind, and our noses wouldn't be able to tell because it smells just like limonene. But our optical rotation would be able to tell because it would change how that light is interacting with the molecules. So it looks kind of like this, and in some ways it's similar to refractive index. We're sending light through the essential oil and we're watching it bend. We're watching it shift in one direction or another. Each essential oil has a very specific way that it will take and bend that light. So if we see any changes to how that light is bending, we'll know that something might be wrong with the oil and we can do some more investigation. Now, that more investigation could involve something called chiral GC. We talked about GCMS. Again, that's one of our most important tests. There's a specific kind of GCMS that helps us discover if those optical molecules, the mirror images, have been changed. If someone's gone in and spiked it with a certain kind of synthetic limonene, for example. Chiral GC is going to separate those molecules, right? It's going to separate the left hands from the right hands, even though they look alike. That's why it's a specialized kind of GC. Let me give you an example of how this works. Let's say that you and your friend or you and your husband are going shopping, and your task is to find a pair of pants. Now, if this were me and my husband, and we get to the mall, my husband would go to the door that's very closest to the store, he would go in and get the pants, and he would come out. Is that how I would go shopping? That is not how I would go shopping. I would go in the door that's farthest away, and I would go in all the little stores, and I would look around, and I would probably buy 15 things that I wasn't looking for because I enjoy the shopping cart. Now, this is kind of like chiral GC. We have two molecules that are very similar, right? You and your friend, or me and my husband, or somebody. We're going to behave in very different ways, though. And in the case of the molecules, one kind of molecule might go very quickly through the GC, and one kind of molecule might go very slowly through the GC and get stuck along the way, and that's how the GC separates them. It's kind of tricky, but kind of cool, because we're able to see if something's been changed in very subtle ways. Okay, this is another type of test, carbon-14 testing. This is something not very many people do. It's not very common, But it's very important because this is one of our most important ways that we can find synthetic additions, right? That's something we don't want in our essential oils. We want what comes naturally from the plant. So the way that carbon-14 testing works is we're all incorporating carbon-14 all the time. This is just a different form of regular carbon. Right? There's carbon everywhere. Everything has carbon in it. Once something dies, that uptake of carbon-14 stops and the ratio changes. Okay, so look at the two sets of arrows. In living plants, we're going to have higher carbon-14 and lower carbon-13. I apologize, that graphic got a little bit weird. But in petroleum products, where we often find synthetic additions to essential oils, we're going to find higher carbon-13 and lower carbon-14. So really we're comparing those two things. Our essential oils come from living plants. So we expect a very certain ratio, higher carbon-14. Synthetic things come from petroleum products, things that have been dead for a long time. We expect lower carbon-14 and higher carbon-13. So if I were to show you this, and you were all to be essential oil experts, based on what we just said, remember, living plants, higher carbon-14, lower 13. Dead, synthetic things, higher 13, lower 14. If I were to say, okay, which of these is adulterated, what would you say? Okay, I see more people pointing here. Are you right? See? You got it. This is exactly what we're checking for. We're looking for that ratio. We're looking for those carbon-14 molecules that come from the living plants, because that's where our essential oils come from. We don't want the synthetic stuff. So we make sure that that ratio is correct. Okay. Fourier transform infrared, or FTIR. Another test involving light. This time we're using infrared light, which is light that our eyes can't see. It's down below the visible spectrum. But this is how we confirm the identity of the oil. And basically, again, we're just shining light through the sample. It's absorbing it in a certain way, and it has a very unique, almost like a fingerprint, that we look for certain peaks and certain valleys. And if it matches up, when we see that oil come through, it's good. If there's peaks where there shouldn't be, valleys where there shouldn't be, that means something's happened to that oil. Something's wrong. So we're going to keep checking it to make sure that there's not adulteration or contamination that's happened. Okay, of course we have to check for microbial contamination. Oils, as you know, are very clean, they're very good for helping things like that, but we still have to make sure in the handling process, in the bottling process, in the shipping process, that something hasn't been picked up, some kind of bug. So we check all the oils, lots of tests, lots of those 43 tests that Rob mentioned yesterday are different kinds of microbes that we screen for to make sure that they're not contained in the essential oil. You want to make sure it's clean. You have to check for these heavy metals and pesticides. Again, not something we want in our essential oils. So we very carefully check and screen to make sure these are not there. The great news is, because we're starting at the source, because we know our growers, and we can talk to them about not using pesticides, and we can test things, we can test soil and water, we can test all these things before the plants even grow, this is not usually a problem. And if it is, we catch it. So it's a good thing. We of course do stability studies. We have to make sure that oils are going to be stable in their jars, in their bottles, so that when you open the lid, it's going to be wonderful and fresh, right? There's a little date stamped on the bottom, and that date is going to be good. We make sure on our stability studies that that date really is ensuring you have fresh oil when you open that bottle. And of course, we do safety studies as well. I'm not even sure if these were included, but we do a number of safety studies, and I haven't even listed them all up here, but we check to make sure that the oil is safe. That's important for us. And the oils are performing amazing. Right? Skin testing, open package stability. We check regulatory compliance. And of course, customer feedback. We get lots of emails. We'd like to hear those emails so we understand your experiences with the essential oils and how we can then improve our process. So, again, the process, I wasn't able to talk about all the tests because there's so many and they're all fantastic, but that's kind of what it looks like. We test and we test and we test at several stages throughout the life of the essential oil, from the plant to the bottle and beyond, to make sure that what's in the bottle is exactly what it should be. Now, we have a number of resources that you're able to use to talk about the essential oil quality, to share that. Source to You is one of these. We're working to make sure that this is an international website, that all the oils are going to be able to be represented on there. And this has been an amazing thing. You can go, we've, in the US right now, and I'm not sure how far we've extended yet, but at least in the US, we're able to take a look from the lot number and pull up a GCMS report, which is huge. All right, that's a great thing to be able to talk about. And even more, there are resources there talking about our growers and our distillers and our scientists and our practitioners. These are great things to be able to use as you're sharing the essential oils with other people. Right? You can say, look at all these things. Look at these resources, look at these tests. My company does these things to make sure that my oils are the best. Now, beyond the process itself, CPTG for us really provides a guide for research. And this is one of my favorite things about the CPTG process. It helps us understand, where do we need to put our research efforts? What still isn't quite understood? Where can we look to find additional information? So, doTERRA has published now more than 24 scientific papers in reputable journals. And we're continuing to publish those things that we find. And this effort is just growing and multiplying. We're encouraging other people. We're really getting some attention. Hospitals and universities are getting more interested in essential oil research as well. So we're really driving that in the industry, and that's exciting. It's also a vehicle of discovery. This slide up here represents one of the pieces of equipment that we're evaluating. It's helping us with organoleptic evaluation. Only instead of our noses, which are subjective, right? My nose smells a little bit different than your nose. This is actually a little tool that can help us with objective analysis. It sniffs the oils and then helps us understand what that smell would look like if we're represented on a computer. To have humans and computers working together to understand the smells of essential oils, that's huge. That's something nobody else is doing. And of course, a vision for progress. We always are looking to improve our systems, to improve our tests, our models, our methods. You know, and Rob talked yesterday about the Prime Meridian directive, the Prime Meridian system that we're working on. This is so exciting for us because essential oils in healthcare are just a wonderful match made in heaven. And you've had a lot of information here at this convention, right? You got to hear yesterday from a doctor who's using these essential oils in her practice. That is huge, right? For us who aren't doctors, of course, it's important to remember that we can't use essential oils in quite the same way, nor can we talk about them in quite the same way, because we're using them for our health, We're still working with doctors anytime that we have health issues. So for us, we're looking at essential oils as a tool for health. And we're talking about them that way. It is exciting though that physicians, doctors, are coming on board and they're able to use these as part of their practice, right? Maybe different than how we're using them in our homes. And they can't do that without CPTG quality that's consistent, that they can count on. As doctors, as scientists, we count on these things, right? We count on that quality and that consistency. And it's important for us, as we're sharing the oils, as we're talking about them, that we understand in our minds how we're using these. Are we using them in conjunction with our healthy lifestyles, right? And this vision for progress, this idea of the oil in every home, that is amazing. And that's something that no one else really has. And we're getting there. We're getting there. So, I leave you with the idea, with the thought, and hopefully as we've gone through this, you've really seen that doTERRA is different. And doTERRA really is leading the industry when it comes to essential oil quality and testing, understanding, research. doTERRA is doing things that no one else has ever done before. And that really shows in that little bottle that you open. doTERRA quality is one of the pillars upon which we stand. I loved our presentation yesterday of those pillars. I'm going to have that in my mind for a little while. But doTERRA quality is something that you won't find anywhere else. And we know because we've looked. And we've done those comparisons, we've done those studies, we've done that research. And we are going to continue to grow this process. And as you talk about the essential oils, we want you to feel confident in that process, in that quality. Right? We want you to be using the oils responsibly, using the oils in caring ways, making sure that you are doing everything that you can to share these in the best ways that you can, right? In ways that will help and bless other people's lives. So, I encourage you to keep learning. Go talk to somebody about what you learned here at this convention. Share with them the essential oils. Tell them all the amazing things that you know, that you've learned, and encourage them to go share with somebody too. We are so grateful to have you here. We can't do this without you, and we are so excited to be here at this convention, to see all this energy, and we can promise you that this is just the beginning. We'll keep growing with you. So, thank you so much for your time today. 谢谢。